What's up everyone, Mike here from The Art of Guitar, here with my next artist series. This one took a little bit. I had to order a bunch of books, I had to buy a lot of gear, including this guitar, because I figured it's really hard to teach Jack White on a Stratocaster. So I had to get some crazy looking plastic guitar and hope for the best. So anyways, these are going to be his techniques that I really enjoy. I think he's a real raw guitar player. And he takes some basic things and really makes them exciting just with a few little changes. So I want to bring those to you today, okay? One thing you're going to notice when you're doing any Jack White solo is that he plays real staccato and he does a lot of minor pentatonic. So if you just want to start there, what I like to do is just take a minor pentatonic shape and do some crazy bends, some picking, and make sure it's real staccato. By that I just mean real short. So instead of maybe, I'll start off in clean sound here. Instead of playing like this, staccato would be. Now, if you were to go ahead and add the fuzz to that, so we have a fuzz pedal, a whammy pedal, a reverb pedal. I've got all sorts of crazy stuff going today. If you add fuzz to staccato, it actually sounds very cutting, has a very cool sound to it. So check this out now. Alright, that gives you the idea. If you were to play smooth with fuzz, it's still pretty aggressive sounding, but not nearly as aggressive. So you'd get something like. Versus. And as you know, Jack White's a great drummer, so sometimes when he does his staccato picking, he does it real rhythmically. So he'll take a bend and just do a staccato rhythm with it, maybe something like this. All right, we got to talk about this whammy pedal. You can't really do a lot of Jack White techniques without it. And I had to pick one up anyway. I've always wanted one, but it was a good excuse doing this video series. So what I do is I'm setting it to 1 octave higher and engaging it. If you just hit the pedal, it sounds like it's going to jump up 1 octave. Add fuzz to that, you get a really cool sound. So it can get pretty extreme. There's even a 2 octave setting, which maybe we'll get to later, maybe not. It's really insane. Okay, so anyways, a cool thing to do with this is to jump between the low octave and the high octave, even mid-riff. This takes a little bit of doing, especially if you're on stage. You have to control the pedal really well. But when the pedal is down like this, you're going to be at regular octave in this setting. And then when you want to go high, you just bring it up. So he has a riff where it's similar to something like this. All right, we got a new camera angle today, so hopefully you can see the pedals I'm using and the way my feet are moving. It's very important today. Okay, so there's another setting on the whammy pedal. Today's going to be there's going to be a lot of attention on the whammy pedal just because it's one of his main things. If you set it to harmony octave, you can have it play an octave below when the pedal's down and an octave above when it's up. Now that might seem similar to the last thing, but really what it's doing is it's adding the lower or higher octave to the regular tone, which is great. It really thickens up your sound. And as you know, being a two-piece band, when you're the only guitar player, really the only melodic instrument on stage, you need all the help you can get to thicken up your sound. So an octave below would be something like this. That was fun disturbing the neighbors with that sound the other day. Okay, then if you go the other way, you're an octave above it, which sounds very similar to a ton of Jack White solos. So it's kind of nice to sound like someone else is playing along with you, takes up space, and really adds to the sound. While we're here, let's do kind of a fun little thing that he does where he takes a melodic line and he alternates the pedal as it's going. Now, it's not exactly what's going on in the recording, but live I've seen him do things like this. And it's kind of hard to control your foot with the rhythm, but once you get the hang of it, it really feels like you're locking into the groove. So I'm going to be switching between an octave below and an octave above as I'm playing a melodic line. It is sort of hard to control that because you're already trying to play something with your hands and then your foot has to keep this off and on type of rhythm, and it's really just 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and it starts forward, so it's a little bit strange to come backwards. Okay, let's go back to pure octaves now. So if I wanted to go up an octave, just engage the pedal, go forward, and you have an octave. Okay, so one thing he does is he copies a trumpet trill, which is great to do with a high octave. There's a lot of little tricks you can do with a higher octave, but just doing a half-step trill, remember a half-step's just 1 fret away, and you just trill really fast, you get sort of a trumpet trill going on. So let's try that in a couple different locations just to see what happens, and it's sort of cool too to push the pedal up as you start so you get that sort of whammy whipping effect. That effect. So you get this. Then you can put them all together. It's something like that, something close to it, but very cool sounding. Of course, it's going to sound very original, being a whole step or a whole octave higher. Let's do the 2 octaves just to see what that sounds like. Now I'm curious. Sorry, that might have freaked your dog out. Now, when you start to play with fuzz, you're going to notice that things sound a little bit more grittier if you do rakes. So remember, we teach all this on the website, all the real specific techniques, trills, rakes, the scales, and all that. But just really quick, if you were just to rake the pick across the strings, with clean sound, you get this kind of a thing. Okay, we're going to cover that later with chords. But with leads, with the fuzz, and even without the octave, it really adds to the intensity of the fuzz going into a note. So instead of just going like this, just hitting a note, going like this, so I'm muting the strings both with my left and the right hands until I get to the note I want, then I open it up. So let's do that with fuzz. First of all, without the rake. Now with the rake. So sometimes you'll hear a lot of noises surrounding his lead playing, and that's because he's raking like crazy. Plus he's got a fuzz going into a fuzz. I believe it's 2 fuzzes. And it just gets so oversaturated. It sounds very cool. But to get that real noisy sound, add some rakes to your leads. Go back to minor pentatonic, maybe do some. And it actually connects you more to the guitar because you're digging into the notes versus just playing one at a time. All right, now one thing you want to do, this is more of an effect technique. Add some spring reverb to your fuzz, and you get a very interesting sound because it's fuzzy, but there's a tail to it. Sometimes with fuzz, it gets a little too dry. So adding a spring reverb gives it a nice little tail. Helps it sit in the mix a little bit differently. This particular one, you can control how much you have just with your foot. I've got this cool little rubber knob thing. I recommend getting those. That way when you're on stage, you can just use your toe to do it. So thanks to my friend Jock Waite for teaching me that little foot on the rubber knob trick. Okay, there's times when you want to play a clean part, let's say with reverb, and you want it to really cut through, but you're not really sure how. So here's a little cool trick to do that. Instead of picking like this, for example, like normal, we need more verb. Oops, I should use my foot. Instead of picking here like normal people do, actually if you're a guitar player, you're probably not normal no matter what, but we're going to take our pick and we're going to actually bring it way back right next to where the bridge meets the strings. And we're going to pick really close to that bridge. Listen to what happens if I start to bring the pick back. So you'll find the sweet spot, it's right about here, kind of at the edge of the back of the pickup. And now pick the same line. Versus. That sounds too normal to be a White Stripes song, right? So, or a Jack White tune. So. It's a good way to give yourself that sort of Americana sound too, like the surf sound as well. All right, let's have some more fun with this whammy pedal. He does a great little siren trick, I call it. That's where you have fuzz. We're going to keep the reverb on, and we're just going to go an octave higher, and we're going to bring it up as we do a trill onto an open string. So we're going to go 12th fret on the E string to open, over and over again, just trill that, and then bring the pedal up slowly. If you ever listen to Lazaretto, great album, he does a lot of these really cool sound effects, and that's one of them. So go ahead and try that, see if you can get the siren going. Okay, who says you always have to play power chords or full chords? One note lines are huge in the White Stripes world. Jack White's really good at playing kind of like bass lines as a guitar line. We're going to do it on one string. And with fuzz, it takes up a lot of space, surprisingly, with just one string. All that sound, one string. It's crazy. All right, if you ever get a White Stripes book or a Jack White book, you're going to notice that there's tons of arpeggios when he does his chords. So yeah, he'll play full chords a lot, but one thing he's really great at is arpeggiating, playing the chords one note at a time, and doing sort of interesting little transitions. So here's what I noticed in one of the tunes. It gives you that real classic rock sound, you know. Anytime you arpeggiate chords on electric guitar, it sounds like that to me. So it already gives them a real classic sound, plus it makes chords more interesting. Imagine if you're just strumming those chords, it just isn't the same. The trick, though, is he sings and plays a lot. So to be able to pick like that and sing at the same time is the true challenge. So take it one at a time, but it's a fun thing to practice. A really cool trick you can do with the whammy pedal is you can simulate a bass. I believe in the studio he used a real bass for this tune, but live, all you gotta do is take your whammy pedal, bring it down an octave, and suddenly have some bass tones. All right, sometimes you have to switch chords so fast that you don't have time to readjust your bar chord, let's say if you're doing some kind of barring. So there's a fun little trick you can do, and I first learned it when I first started playing Kiss, Detroit Rock City, and then when I played Foo Fighters. There's a lot of people who do this. But in Jack's case, what we're going to do is we're going to alternate between a C chord and a G chord. And he just lays his finger flat, sort of like Kurt Cobain does, and you get this sound. You add the bar across the 6th string, you get this. Bigger, right? And then bring the ring finger over till you get to the G power chord with an added note. This is the Nirvana sound, actually. Sus 4 chord sound. People still argue if it's actually in Smells Like Teen Spirit, but I swear it is. Okay, so if you go back and forth between those two, it's nice. You don't have to move your index finger. And then he slides up. Weezer does this as well. All right, put more into context, it sounds like this. All right, nothing more fun than bending a power chord. So we're gonna do that to the D power chord. So we're at the 5th string, 5th fret, do a power chord, and we're gonna bend it a quarter of a step. So let's start off just by practicing that, maybe with clean sound. You can't go too crazy with it. It's really hard to bend 2 notes like that, a whole step. So we're just gonna go up a quarter. We're not even gonna go up a half. We're just gonna go up a quarter. So we get this. It really adds emotion to the part of the song that they do that in. Jack's got quite a vibrato array. He does a whole bunch of different types of vibrato. But one that he does that sounds great with fuzz is he'll start to do just nervous bends, I call them, or nervous vibrato. And that's where you bend, hold it up, and just start shaking it like crazy, like you're super nervous. And it creates a really interesting sound with fuzz and with a little bit of reverb. And even if you want to go ahead and add some whammy pedal, it could be very interesting. We'll try it a couple different ways here. So that can also work on the highest notes with the whammy pedal. Sounds pretty intense, like all of his stuff does. But really get used to holding the note up on a bend and then letting it drop a little, bringing it back up. And eventually you get this real crazy twitch going on, and that's where the nervous part comes in. All right, I had somebody ask me, how do you do rakes with chords? And it's fun. A big part of it is to use palm muting, which once again we teach on the website. But if you put the side of your palm against where the bridge meets the strings, you get this nice, if we're doing A minor chord, See that? You see how when you do that, the high note sometimes peaks out? That's what you want to go for in this case. So we're going to make an A minor chord, like I said. We're going to go. Sort of that Spanish sound. Add some fuzz. I would turn the volume down a little bit. You don't want it to be full fuzz. It's too crazy. So just a little bit. The idea is to be able to still hear that percussive sound as you're playing. If you can't hear it, you might be using too much fuzz. Now, a lot of his playing gets real just bluesy and grungy. And a great thing that he does with fuzz, I'm going to add a little reverb on this one too. It's almost like you can't go wrong if you add spring reverb to almost anything that he does. But mute the strings. This time we're not going to do any kind of raking. We're just going to go. So we're going to keep sort of a rhythmic thing. Like I said before, he's very percussive. I mean, he plays drums too. So start with that. And then what we could do is we could add his little blues thing that he does. He goes. That's a cool sound. So I'm doing upstrokes. I saw him live. He's doing crazy upstrokes for this part. The E and the B string. Adding the D note. So he's going to hit the second string, third fret. Back to the two open strings. Then we're going to do some mutes. Then we hit the G with our middle finger here. All right, people always ask me about changing pentatonic scales when you're soloing over blues. And one thing that he does really well is he'll play a 1-4-5 progression, say E, A, and B. Once again, if you don't know the terms, jump to the website if you can. And if we're in E and you play an E minor pentatonic, you're good to go. But when people switch to A and B chords, they don't know what to do. What Jack does is he jumps to A minor pentatonic and B minor pentatonic and he follows it. So it works in one particular tune. But let's just do this. I'll play a couple chords. I'll play some licks to follow in the corresponding scale. And then we'll just get through it all, okay? So E. Then it goes to A. He goes to A minor pentatonic. Goes to B. Back to A, let's say. And then back to E, he would either jump up here or open. So that's a fun thing to do. So you could follow the changes in a very elementary way. I shouldn't say elementary. It's actually pretty cool and complex if you really get into that. But it's fun to follow the changes. So whenever someone's doing the E, play the E minor pentatonic when they switch to A and so on. And you might come up with some really interesting stuff like he does. Okay, you're going to hear a little Led Zeppelin in this next part. It's the single string turnaround. Let's say we're piggybacking off the last idea. So we're in E blues. And we get to the B. Right there. Perfect place to throw the turnaround. All we're going to do is we're going to go open E, G sharp, A sharp to B. We're just going to climb chromatically. That's one string or one fret at a time. 4th fret, 5th fret, 6th fret, 7th fret. You get one of the most basic but underutilized, I would say, turnarounds. So let's do the entire ending. We're going to go B, A, E, and then we're going to do the turnaround. So it's B, A, E with the turnaround. Use that sometimes. You know, there's a lot of fancy turnarounds out there. You know, we all know Stevie Ray Vaughan type turnarounds, but just that real powerful Black Sabbath kind of Led Zeppelin one string idea with a fuzz is actually pretty powerful for a turnaround. All right, one common theme of today is to take something basic and fill it out a little bit more so I can fill up the sound. So what we're going to do is we're going to take basic power chords and we're going to arpeggiate them a certain way and we're going to make it sound more interesting. So instead of going like this, instead of just doing power chords, we're going to arpeggiate them a certain way. Makes it a little more interesting. So that real minimalist approach to guitar can be very effective. As you know, he's one of the most raw, basic yet interesting guitar players. When I say basic, don't think that means anything bad. He just does the fundamental things in such a crazy cool way that he's made it his own, which is very tough to do. All right, since we're in clean sound, let's go ahead and do some octave slides. Use your fingers this time. So we're going to actually use thumb, and then I use my index finger. And we're going to go like this. We're going to start at D. We're going to slide up to F, up to G, up to A, go down to C, and come back to D. So you guys might know this tune. But one extra little added thing is, since we're using our fingers, remember I keep talking about his rhythm abilities, we're going to actually mute the strings and do that in between the slides. So it's sort of a dual technique, octave slides with muted rhythmic plucks. I don't know what I'm going to call it, but we get this. Some people only know the minor pentatonic scale, and if you do that in open position, it's great because you get this nice little shape, 3rd fret, 2nd frets, and then 3rd fret again. And if you do pull-offs with that, like I learned the first time I did Back in Black, he does a really fast pull-off run, and it's really impressive. He uses it live too quite a bit, so I'm going to do this with clean sound. It's this idea. And then when I started playing some country stuff, that would come into play as well. But you can go really fast because you're pulling off to open strings. That's a cool sound. Now add fuzz. You can't teach Jack White without this trick. A lot of guitar players do it, but if you have the right type of guitar, the other one that I have doesn't have this ability. You have to have 2 volume knobs controlling one for each pickup. You shut one of them off, and with a toggle switch, you could turn it on or off. Great way to silence your guitar in between songs during a live show, but even if you just want to use that as an effect, it's fun. Okay, so I shut off the front pickup, the neck pickup, and I just have the bridge pickup active. So right now you're not hearing anything because the toggle switch is in the middle. Once I activate that bridge pickup, you're going to hear it. Some more Tom Morello techniques there for you too. A couple freebies. Now, one thing that Jack does in a great way is he does it rhythmically once again. He'll hit it and he'll go with the rhythm with a certain type of pattern. So you get this. And if your guitar is creating feedback and you do that, it's such a cool sound. It seems to work really well with fuzz pedals because it really bites through when you hit that switch. I don't quite get that kind of bite with my overdrive pedals, so just a little side tip. All right, so we have 3 cameras today and now 3 guitars. They all serve a purpose, trust me. When you do finger picking like he does on his Friends song, I just call it the Friends song, or I should call it the Napoleon Dynamite song because it's on that movie. When he plays, if you have trouble with finger picking, this is a great way to get started. So make a G chord, and it's really not essential that you do the 4-finger G chord. You could just do the 3 or even just 1 finger in this case, strangely enough. I recommend, though, try to hold down the chord shape as you do this, even if you don't play the strings that are being fretted necessarily. Here's what I mean. We're going to hit the root note with our thumb. I know I say root funny because I'm from Minnesota, but the root note with my thumb. And all you need to do is you need to choose a couple of the higher strings and alternate between them. So I'm going to go to the B string with my middle finger, like that. So start by alternating between those 2. See how the thumb is creating a beat by doing like a bass note, and then alternating is the high note. Now, if you really want to get crazy, you can go to the 3rd string, the open G, with your index finger, like that, and then go between the 2. And now we're going to go to the C chord, and we're going to alternate with our thumb now to the 5th string, 3rd fret, and we're going to go to the same high notes, alternating. it's fun to go to the C, then back to the G. Then he goes to the D. Now your thumb has to go to the 4th string open as the bass note. So you just pick on the highest 2 strings now for the alternating notes. And then he jumps to a C add 9 type chord. So he goes. Jumps to this. Then you go back to G from there. That will get you started with finger picking. It's a very basic way to get started. The better you get, the more comfortable you'll be doing your switches, and you won't have any gaps between them. A lot of the times when people are finger picking, this isn't a big finger picking lesson, by the way. I'm kind of turning it into one, but go to the site for that. All right, everyone, like I said, this was a learning process to get this video going. I had to get a lot of stuff for it, so I'm excited about doing a Jack White video, so I'm glad it exists now. And thanks for all the suggestions once again, and we'll catch you guys at the next lesson, okay? Thanks.